Millionaires are made in moments like these, when we know when to be greedy and when to be fearful. The Trump administration's latest move to ramp up the trade war has sent shockwaves through global markets. By imposing new tariffs on copper imports as well as targeting major trading partners like Japan and South Korea, the administration is not only escalating tensions but also forcing companies and investors to rethink their strategies. These tariffs are designed to protect American industries, but they also risk disrupting international supply chains and increasing costs for manufacturers and consumers alike. The world is watching closely as these economic power plays unfold. At the same time, these aggressive policies, when combined with the massive manufacturing incentives included in the so-called Big Beautiful Bill, are setting the stage for a once-in-a-lifetime investing opportunity. A select group of key semiconductor stocks now stand to benefit enormously from this new economic landscape, making this a pivotal moment for savvy investors. In this video, we'll break down how these tariffs will likely play out and which chip stocks are positioned to win big as a result. Earlier this week, President Trump made headlines by announcing a bold new policy, a 50% tariff on all imported copper. This move, aimed at protecting American industry and jobs, marks one of the most significant trade actions in recent years. The announcement was met with immediate reactions from both domestic manufacturers and international trading partners, who are now bracing for the impact of higher costs and potential supply chain disruptions. Almost overnight, copper prices soared to an all-time high, reflecting the market's anxiety over restricted supply and increased demand. Investors rushed to buy copper futures, while manufacturers expressed concern about rising production expenses and the potential for price hikes on consumer goods. The United States is currently the world's fifth largest copper producer, with major mining operations in states like Arizona, Utah, and New Mexico. These domestic mines are expected to benefit from the new tariffs, as demand for locally sourced copper increases. However, despite its significant production, the U.S. still imports about 40% of the copper it consumes each year. This reliance on foreign copper means that the new tariffs could have far-reaching effects on industries ranging from construction to electronics, and may ultimately impact American consumers. You know, copper is absolutely essential to the entire semiconductor industry. It's used in chips, manufacturing equipment, and even in data center infrastructure. The stated goal here is to boost domestic production, but honestly, the reality is a whole lot more complex. President Trump also announced a new round of 25% tariffs on goods from Japan and South Korea. So this directly impacts the semiconductor supply chain, since, Japanese companies like Canon, Nikon, and Sony produce essential components for chip-making machinery. At the same time, Korean companies like Samsung and SK Hynix really dominate the global memory chip market. Taken together, these tariffs sure seem like a major blow to the semiconductor industry. However, if you take a closer look, you'll see they're likely aggressive negotiating tactics, not really meant to be a long-term economic policy. It takes an average of 29 years for a U.S. copper mine to go from discovery all the way to production. The industry just can't simply move overnight, that's for sure. When it comes to the impact of these tariffs, there are really only three possible outcomes that could play out for the companies involved. First, the companies themselves could try to absorb the extra costs, taking the financial hit in order to keep their products affordable and competitive in the market. Second, those costs could be passed directly on to consumers, which would mean higher prices for everything from smartphones and laptops to gaming consoles and other tech gadgets that rely on advanced chips. Or third, the tariffs themselves could be renegotiated or even rolled back if enough pressure builds from both industry leaders and international partners to find a more sustainable solution. But in reality, the first two options are pretty unlikely for most major tech companies. Companies are rarely willing to sacrifice their profit margins, especially in such a competitive industry where every dollar counts and shareholders expect steady growth. And if prices go up for consumers, that could trigger a wave of inflation across the tech sector. making devices less accessible and potentially slowing down innovation and demand. That's a scenario the current administration is especially eager to avoid, as rising inflation is a major concern for both policymakers and the public. That leaves the most probable outcome. These tariffs will be lowered, delayed, or maybe even removed entirely, which could create some significant upside for chip stocks. While the tariff situation is still being worked out, the big beautiful bill, which was just passed by the Senate, is giving a strong and immediate boost to the semiconductor industry. So, here's what the bill does. It bumps up the tax credit for expanding advanced chip manufacturing here in the United States from 25% to 35%. And first off, these tax credits are actually uncapped, which means, well, there isn't any maximum dollar amount that a company can claim. Second, companies can elect for a direct pay option, receiving the credit as an upfront cash payment from the Treasury. This is essentially a 35% cash rebate on all you. Companies like Intel, TSMC, and Micron, which have already committed over $100 billion each to you. So this combination of likely tariff relief and, massive direct government support really creates a powerful catalyst for a select group of semiconductor stocks. The first stock that's set to benefit here is Applied Materials. As NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang has said, NVIDIA's GPUs just wouldn't exist without Applied Materials. The company makes the fundamental tools for chip processing, including epitaxial reactors that apply layers of materials to semiconductors and chemical mechanical polishers that smooth those layers. They are also leaders in the etching and deposition processes that create the electronic circuits on a wafer. Applied Materials relies on specialty parts and subassemblies from Japanese and Korean companies, making them highly sensitive to the new tariffs. If these tariffs are reduced or removed, it will be a significant tailwind for the company. Trading at a 21 forward price-to-earnings ratio, Applied Materials is cheaper than many of its peers and has significant room to run as the AI era unfolds. The second stock is Micron Technology. So, while it's up around 40% year-to-date, Micron still looks pretty cheap, trading at a forward price-to-earnings ratio of just 12.3. That's well below its peers, even though it's got much faster expected earnings growth. Micron is actually the only major American company in the high-bandwidth memory market, which is a sector expected to grow at a 25% compound annual rate all the way through 2033. Now, Micron's two biggest competitors, Samsung and SK Hynix, are both South Korean companies, and they're facing these new tariffs. This gives Micron a significant strategic advantage since chip companies will probably start to diversify their memory supply chains in Micron's favor. And on top of that, Micron is building a $15 billion fab in Idaho and a $100 billion mega fab in New York, which could qualify them for over $37 billion in tax credits from the big, beautiful bill. So this is really a powerful combination of competitive advantage and government support. The third stock is Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, or TSMC. As the heart of the AI revolution, TSMC is a pure-play foundry that makes around 90% of all advanced chips in the world for clients like Apple and NVIDIA. The global AI chip market is expected to grow at over 31% annually through 2033, and TSMC's market share is likely to increase over time. Despite its dominance, TSMC stock trades at a forward price-to-earnings ratio of just 18. The company recently reported a 40% increase in revenue for the first half of 2025, yet its earnings are projected to grow by only 14%, a significant miss by Wall Street analysts that suggests the stock is undervalued. Discounted cash flow models estimate TSMC's fair value to be around $307 per share, making it roughly 25% undervalued today. With the company expanding its manufacturing footprint in the United States, it also stands to receive tens of billions of dollars in tax credits from the Big Beautiful Bill, adding another layer of upside to one of the most important AI companies on Earth. The combination of likely tariff reversals and unprecedented government manufacturing incentives has created a unique and powerful opportunity in the semiconductor sector. Applied Materials, Micron Technology, and TSMC are three companies that stand to benefit enormously from these converging forces. For investors who understand the dynamics at play, this could be, honestly, one of the biggest investment opportunities of our